Welcome in, YouTubers, to another episode of DFS Diary. I am your buddy Choppadong, and of course, I hail from DFSArmy.com, the one-stop shop for all things daily fantasy sports. What I'm going to do is I'm going to dive into NBA a little bit today, just run through a player pool real quick, cut one down, but I'm going to spend most of my time on NHL. So let's kind of dive into NHL Showdown slates today, and let's talk a little bit about that as we start to kind of branch out a little bit of what we talk about here on the diary. But NBA dominates the popularity, what people want to talk about, so let's give you guys that first. But first and foremost, thank you again for the likes and subscribes and all of the support that you've given to DFS Diary. I really do appreciate it. Click the like, click the subscribe, ring the little notification bell. Of course, down in the comment section, you can see how to become a VIP, get the content, tools, and coaching that are making us better players every single day out at DFSArmy.com. Use coupon code CHOP, C-H-O-P. Now, I'm not 100% sure right now. I have not gotten the okay from the boss, but I think we're going to transition that code CHOP, C-H-O-P, to a perma 20% off. So we liked the New Year campaign last week. I think we're gonna roll with it for a little while. So use that coupon code CHOP, C-H-O-P, trigger 20% off your first month, or actually, I think any month going forward. I think you can grandfather yourself in at that 20% off rate. So if you have questions, hit me in the comments section, hit me up out on Twitter. Let's talk a little bit of NBA today, and let's kind of dive in. NBA, the very simple way that I go about things. I know people want to see DraftKings and whatnot, and I'll work my way over that way just based on the requests, but I want to do Fanduel a little bit more while we're kind of getting set up to pursue a little bit of DraftKings player pools. They're largely the same. Some players are a little bit different than others. Like, the other day ran James Harden on the point guard because I wanted, what I wanted, three shooting guards, I believe it was. I wanted Doncic, and I wanted Donovan Mitchell for sure, and James Harden. So I had to push one of them in, and I know I got the utility spot too, but I was using two centers, that night as well. So kind of had to force my construction and use the multi-construction stuff over there. That's one of your advantages over on NBA. If you know on DraftKings, if you know how to finagle the multi-position usability, then you can put certain guys not in their traditional spot, but in another spot that DraftKings allows you to slide them into. And of course, take advantage of the field that way by cutting your value down to very specific spots and then opening up the other positions to give yourself a little bit more leverage on the rest of the field if you see a couple of guys you really, really like that the rest of the field might pass over. So FanDuel-wise, we sort by the and one. That's the traditional way that we go about things. I've done different stuff. I've shown you different ways, and I'll show you one little trick today as we blow through that player pool. But when we sort by and one, we'll take the top five. This is kind of where we start with Lillard, Irving, Walker, Bryn Forbes, and De'Aaron Fox. Of course, we'll run down, monitor a little bit, shooting guards a little bit deeper, so we can look to pay down a little bit there. Holiday, Harden at 13-3 might still be a value. DeMar DeRozan, CJ McCollum, Donovan Mitchell. I would be looking at maybe a McCollum tonight, looking to save a little bit of money in this position, maybe even a little Lou Williams, something along those lines. Not that it's the end-all be-all. You might do your own process and figure out you don't like those guys that much. But on a shallow position like small forward here, I'm going to want to pay up. I probably would. More is you got now. This is a potential turd trap. You're going to have to watch the minutes and the usage that each one might get here. 30 minutes is a lot. 20 points is not. 4,200 would make you maybe a drop score candidate, and I don't think you're going to want to put more than about two drops in your lineup. Three, you're really starting to push it because you end up with one of those drops doing bad. Then the rest of your lineup, if anything in the rest of your lineup falters, you miss cash. That gets to another tip that I might share a little bit down the road about how to allocate cash games 50-50s and your tournament play in NBA right now, because those cash lines are really, really high in those 50-50s, and there's an adjustment that you can make, but that's another thing. That's why you got to click the notification bell in these videos, because I don't have time to cram it all into one day. You got to come back when I mention these things time and time again. Mirotic, Turner, Bertrand. So we're looking shallow, we're looking cheap. That's okay. So that may open up, but Gallinari might be relatively important tonight, given that nobody else up there. It's one of those kind of pay up to be contrarian spots, because the majority of people should be paying down, looking at the kind of the turd traps that are all in this spot. But each one more might be a major turd trap tonight. Turd trap's my own little term. A lot of these drop score candidates are turd players, and a lot of them are traps. You need to find the good turds, not the trap turds. Power forward, another one relatively shallow, but Anthony Davis dominates up top. He's actually cheaper than James Harden. It should pull some people to Anthony Davis, but I still think James Harden, without Chris Paul, in the situation that he's in, man, it's still tough to get away from him at 13-3. Anthony Davis is like a pulled eyelash away from the injury report, so you've always got to be a little bit leery of that. And he's never really quite safe enough for cash games, even if you run him in cash, which is fine. You just have to realize you're taking on additional risk when you do it because he's so injury prone or he's so you know I don't know. It's just the way that obviously that he's used. We know he's injury prone. He hasn't been this year. It's been kind of a surprising year for him, but I still would be kind of looking at it with one unibrow squinted, if you will. LaMarcus Aldridge, Tobias Harris, Montrezl Harrell, Aminu. These are all players that are in play at over the 10 and 11 in the and one. I'd be a little leery of guys down in here. I know Jason Tatum's inconsistent. Blake Griffin might have a tougher matchup. There's your ADVP. That might be why he's a little bit lower. More of a contrarian type of GPP play today. Center spot. Looking over really easily. Nurkic, Randall, Drummond. Very deep again. Gobert, Will Cauley-Stein, Al Horford. You want a low-owned guy that tends to hit value. Al Horford's one of them. Guy always seems under-owned. I wouldn't be using one of my drops out of this category probably. I'd probably just go ahead and pay up to the mid to higher levels. And it is what it is. So let's go looking for our drop turds. Sorted by and one. Let's go ahead and let's sort by value this time. Sort by descending. I'm going to edit off these minutes. If you aren't getting 25 minutes, I don't want to look at you right now. I may look at you later in the day, but I don't want to look at you right now. So I cut that off, and now, because of value, Harry Giles, Pau Gasol, sorry, that's a turd trap. Where did my minutes go? Oh, I did less than. That's what happened. I need to go greater than 25. Oh, it's Monday. Monday. Hopefully that kicks it. There we go. So Shelvin Mack, Patrick Beverley, Royce O'Neal, Mirotic, Avery Bradley. You got to watch Bradley. LaMarcus Aldridge, in a bad way, not a good way. Bryn Forbes, Garrett Temple is another one you might want to watch. These are guys that usage numbers are low, their fantasy projections are low. You might take a look. LaMarcus Aldridge, when he strikes the value list as high, might be very, very valuable tonight. And of course, value is value, whether it's dirt cheap or not. But we're looking for the drop score candidates, so I might take this. Cut this one down under 4,500. Call it 4,600. 4,500, 4,200, whatever. It doesn't really 5,000. Doesn't really matter. Shelvin Mack, Patrick Beverley, Avery Bradley, probably a turd trap. Garrett Temple, probably a turd trap. Etuan Moore, probably a turd trap. Bruce Brown, probably a turd trap. Okay? So if I'm looking at somebody for deep, deep value in a drop candidate, I'm either going to pay up and build very, very balanced tonight, or I might use a Shelvin Mack or a Patrick Beverley, and I'm going to be digging into the research and looking at the numbers. Which of these guys has the potential to get me 30 points tonight? Those are the guys I want to use. The rest of them are kind of traps, so I wouldn't worry about them too much. All right? That's quickly going to kind of do a little bit when it comes to NBA. We'll bounce off. I want to do one more neat little thing, clock watch here. Let's look at your 3-game versus 10-game and sort that by descending. Who's getting the minutes bump? Royce O'Neal, right? And then look at some of these others down in here in the 3, 2, 3, 4. That's not a huge bump, but it is something. So it's suggesting to you these guys are a little bit underpriced. If I look and they're in a decent paced-up game, they're favored, they're implied to score points. Their 3-game values running high. I can use these sections in conjunction with each other, and I can sort through. Now, if I sort back through and go under 5,000 or whatever, sort by value, come over here. Look at the 3-game versus 10-game, where who's got the minutes bump, and then who's running hot at the same time. Now I maybe have dodged some of my turd traps. That's what I would do. But you can't do that unless you have access to the DFS Army Research Station. Now, what I want to do is talk a little bit about NHL and the single game slate. We need 3 forwards, 2 defensemen, and 1 captain, right? So, the other night last night we had Arizona and Calgary. Calgary scored 7 goals. It was great. I tend to be a little bit more contrarian in these things, but this is going to be something we're going to have to talk about quite a while before we really get these tips out. The main thing that I want to show you is the small size of these tournaments. If you're an inexperienced player, if you're not an experienced player, 51 is okay. 5 shots at a 297 man tournament is winnable. Okay. When I look at these, they pay the top 20% 2.5x. They pay the top prize 30x. That's okay. It's a little better than a 100-man league, but this one's guaranteed to fill. The 100-man is not. If I was using that one way, I would back myself with cash. If I was laddering the situation, I might run a 3-man or 5-man or a 10-man league and then use that as my main entry, and then I would use my, throw the lineup here in one of the tournaments. Or if I only had, like, say, $5, I might just run $5 in this thing and try and take out more than $5. If I hit with 2 lineups, cash with 2 lineups, I profit on the night, no problem. And in 300 people, you can cash with 2 lineups. If you do really, really well, you can cash with all 5. You win it, and you've paid for it no matter what the other 5 lineups did. So this is a decent contest. I like 100-mans better, but when 100-mans are not guaranteed to fill in a low-volume sport, especially a low-volume type slate like a single game, when it comes to niche sports, single games, those are going to fill less than the classic builds are, so I tend to focus on the guaranteed tournaments. I want them to fill. I want to play tonight. What I would do if I had the bankroll for it, and maybe you do, is I'd play this every single night. Yeah, it's only 13 people, but 13 people is very, very winnable. When I open that up, 4th place pays, not just like a 10-man league or a 1st, 2nd, 3rd play. 4th place pays $14. Tops is not quite 5x, it's about 4.5x, a little over 4.2x, something like that. But these are winnable. And what it would teach you is it would teach you that the higher the buy-in, the lower the winning score can be and still win. Not always, but the lower it can be and still win. Therefore, if you're not building these nut lineups of 250 points, you can win these tournaments down here. You can win these, and this is more of a league than a tournament, but you can win these. And if you want to really run your luck, you run a $4 4 max entry type situation and, go gunning for that $100 first prize, but you're not going to get a lot out of these. And the idea here is because these tournaments are not that big, even 150 man is not that big. You can run pretty cash, pretty fundamentally smart lineups in these things. You don't have to go stack the weirdos. You didn't have to go stack Arizona last night because honestly, Arizona's not going to beat Calgary often enough for you to get paid off enough on this risk. You're not going to put in a quarter and win $100. You don't have to beat 3,000 people to do this. I played the one I liked, the little $3 single entry 39-man tournament. This, I thought, I need some Arizona last night, but I really didn't because the chalk's going to play here quite often. Yes, you get one of those weird contrarian nights. Let's say 1 out of 10 times Arizona smokes Calgary 5-0, and the guys that had Calgary all stacked up, or Arizona all stacked up, were the ones that would run away with it. But what are they winning? On $3, 10 times their money? That's not enough reward to be super, super contrarian. Now, it's okay to be a little contrarian. So let's go studying up today and let's form a little bit of a game plan. Let's assume we're going to play these smaller contests, okay? I mean, even this one's smaller at 300 people. But let's go assuming Buffalo and Edmonton today. Let's use the research station to do it. I need to shrink the size of this back down a little bit. And what I'm looking at when I look at Buffalo and Edmonton, first off, the odds are a little bit on Edmonton, right? Implied total's a little bit on Edmonton, but it's a fairly even game tonight. That tells me we may see a fairly balanced structure tonight in building our lineup. That's the initial game plan. But let's go looking into the numbers, the team numbers a little bit. Not necessarily the whole season of 45 games, because Buffalo started off really, really well through their first 20 games. What have they done recently? Let's look at their last 10 games. They're 3-6. Their goals for are down, they're red. Their goals against are down a little bit, they're red. Their shots on goal are up. They're still shooting fairly well. They're still ranked in terms of shots on goal fairly highly across the league, but their shots against are also down, which means they're not allowing. Their defense is playing fairly well. They're just not winning because they're not scoring. And when they're not scoring, look, their power play, 14% sucks over the last 10 games. Their power play is great. Again, they're playing solid defense, but they're not scoring any goals. And when you're not scoring any goals, you got trouble. And it's not good for fantasy either. And you're a little bit on the road. If I look at your last 10 road games, you're 2-6, 2-6-2. Not good either. Shot suppression's okay. Actually, this should be a little high. So it's red, and meaning it's bad. They're giving up shots. Wow. Okay, so a little bit of a twist there. They are allowing shots. That's going to give a little bit of a bump to Edmonton. But looking at the goals against, it's even worse on the road, right? Versus their last 10 overall. The only thing going for you is the last 2 years against the opponent, and they're 2-0 on the road. They beat the last 4 times they've played Edmonton, they beat them. Okay, so there is a little bit of something going for maybe there's a matchup thing there, but again the roster shuffled. Ryan O'Reilly's gone. There's some shifting going on year to year. Looking over here at Edmonton, we're going to take a peek here. They're not so hot on in the last 10 either, 3-7. So what we've really got is kind of a muck fest. Got a muck fest where we're not scoring a lot of goals. Again, goals for are down, goals against are way up. That's interesting, way up. Maybe Buffalo gets a little bit of a bump here. See, but I'm still looking, I'm still torn, I'm still sort of 50-50 on this. This isn't an overwhelming favorite situation where I'm going to be stacking against chalk. It's pretty much everything's on the table right now. This would bode well for playing that 5-entry max 300-man tourney where I can throw 5 lineups at it and just scatter them out. Take 5 shots at it instead of taking 1 shot, because when it's all spread out and it's all pretty even, it's pretty 50-50, it's kind of a crapshoot. This would definitely be something where you want to play for some reward because you're either going to do really, really poorly or you might do really, really well. Philosophically, this isn't necessarily the type of game, one single game, and I wouldn't do it anyway, but the type of single game situation where I'd run cash. Last night might have been because an overwhelming favorite in Calgary with Arizona on the road and a Calgary offense that can score is, we kind of know what we're going to get. We don't know what we're going to get tonight. So again, last 10 home games, 4-6, which is interesting because Edmonton should be a little bit stronger at home. And of course, games played 0-3-1. So there's that 4-0, 0-3-1 with low goals for and a lot of goals allowed. So, maybe you're looking to put a couple of Buffalo Sabres in. We're going to have a couple from each team. But when we're evenly spread like this and we're looking more at lower offenses that aren't scoring a lot, some maybe are giving some goals up. But what we're really looking for is high floor plays. We're looking for production. We're looking for high floor plays. Where do we find it? We go into our little skaters tab. We can actually go to the line combos tab. This would be one way to do it. This might be a real quick way to do this. If I scroll down to the Buffalo game, Buffalo and Edmonton tonight, and I'm going to be looking for these last 10 games again or these last 5 games again and who's currently running hot. Who is doing the producing? Well, it looks like Skinner. It looks like Eichel. It looks like Reiner. Shocker, right? Who else should be doing the performing on these lines? You look down here, the defense is not necessarily getting it done for Buffalo right now. And there's nobody on these other lines that's really popping up. So your top exposure is going to probably be in here. Reiner would save you some money. Skinner and Eichel would get you some consistent production. Last 5 games, you might focus on Skinner if he stays hot with 4 goals and assists and 19 shots. You're looking for a little bit of that floor, and the production will provide the floor. The other thing we're going to look at is shots on goal and blocked shots. We're going to see who typically does the shooting on the team. It looks like Eichel does a lot of the shooting. So being that his shots on goal are up there, but still a little bit lower than Skinner, there's something there. Maybe we see some positive regression, maybe we don't. When I look over at Edmonton, of course McDavid's going to be very, very chalky tonight. This would be one where in a tournament you might make a couple of lineups. You might fade him in one of them. He has bad games like anybody else, but he also has generally very, very, very safe. Now, he's going to cost you, obviously. Doesn't have a lot going on with him. Ratty, not so much, but he would be cheap exposure. Not even really shooting the puck a ton. 3 and 5 for Nugent Hopkins. I'm looking for Clefboom, Nurse, somebody like that. Clefboom probably still hurt. Nurse is at least providing a little bit. And then down here on that second line, Draisaitl, there would be your cheaper deal. But you could go to like a leftwinglock.com. You could look up the line matchups and see when the last 2 times these guys played each other, who paired with who basically look at the line production on Left Wing Lock, look who's given up goals, look which of these teams, if they have lines that are giving up more goals, a lot of times your top line doesn't play as much defense. Your second line could be your shutdown line. If you can find out who the shutdown line is for these teams, you can maybe play the matchups and realize that the home team's got the line change, the shift advantage, in that they get, the other team puts their line out first and then the home team gets to react to that. So if the shutdown line comes out there, Connor McDavid may not go out there. They may try to shuffle up their line, shuffle up their shifts a little bit so that they can kind of dodge those bullets. That's why the home team sometimes has the advantage if they're not completely talent outclassed. But Draisaitl's not a bad play. Gets you a power play exposure to McDavid if you don't run him. The other way that I would do this, I'd go into the skaters tab and I would kick down over here and I would start looking for floor. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here and I'm going to do Buffalo and then I'm going to do Edmonton. I'm going to click them both on, turn everybody else off on a single game slate. Coincidentally, this is also a way to transfer out on your shorter 3, 4, 5 game slates too. You just do this game by game by game. Figure out who's got the floor. We found Osterley last night. It was an easy peg for Arizona. He was third pair defenseman, but he was running hot. Nobody was going to be on him. Nobody looks at the third pair. They're all lazy. That's where you get your advantage. That's where you get your edge. Let's see. Let's scroll over. I want to look first at percentage of team scoring. And McDavid is 73% of the time involved in a team goal. I mean, you almost can't refuse that on a one-game slate. It would be a big GPP fade. It would be one of those things where when you fade him, you'd fade him in a multi-lineup situation, and you would be doing it strictly because it can happen. You know, he can get a 0. Okay? Draisaitl, 60% of their goals. This is going to be the most popular stack going tonight, I would imagine. Both big names on these teams, producing a lot of the team's points. There you go. 46% for Eichel, 42% for Skinner, not bad. 40% for Reinert, that's cheap again. 44% Nugent Hopkins for Edmonton again. These are all going to be the popular plays. The easiest way to scroll this one over is let's go set of season numbers. Let's look last 10. SOGBS, shots on goal and blocked shots. Let's bring all of those studs up to the top. And let's see who is also running a little bit above normal right now. We'll also scroll over just a smidge and look at their Fanduel points as well. And you can do the same thing for DraftKings again. But I'm looking here. Clefboom is not playing. At least I don't think he is. What if he was? Sorry to think out loud, but he had been hurt. Yeah, IR. So why he's still in there pulling last 10 game averages, I don't understand. But so you can ignore him, right? Nurse is next highest on the list at 46. So there's maybe one of your defensemen. Skinner, Eichel, maybe McCabe. You want a cheap floor? McCabe might be your guy. Buffalo. 35 shots on goal and blocked shots, right? Producing about 6 or 7 points. That's not phenomenal, but he is up a little bit over the last 5 games. 17 shots on goal, blocked shots out of 35 is half, so he's consistent. It's been consistent. He's just maybe had another assist in there than usual. Whatever the case may be, that may be something cheap to kind of put in there. Because if you want McDavid and you want Draisaitl and you want those guys, you're going to have to find some cheap value. This is where you're going to find it, is in this floor, this shot on goal, block shot floor. Russell potentially, McDavid, Ristolainen. Ristolainen is going to be expensive. Ethan Bear if he's playing. Tage Thompson's a cheap winger. Evan Rodriguez, probably another relatively cheap one. But if I want to, these are my floor guys, right? And I want to see floor guys that are also producing, if I can. So, of course, Connor McDavid is going to be on that list. Which of these cheaper guys? Nurse? Skinner, Eichel, all the way down here. Draisaitl's producing. Dalen maybe producing a little bit. Nugent Hopkins way down the list. Not shooting and blocking shots a ton, but he's producing. Look down over here. Let's sort these out by points. Question is, do you want to be correlated or not? That's also another question you would run in these types of slates. 26 up top, 23. So I'm looking. There's a big drop off in Draisaitl. 23 over his last 10 games, only 8 over his last 5. There's a clue. You might fade Draisaitl and let everybody else take him and hope the cold streak continues. One way to go about it. 21, 21, 21. 19 over 17 for Skinner. 17 the same for Nurse. Very consistent again. 14 over what? 13 for Reinert. So running a little bit hot. Maybe a Skinner Reinert mini stack with McCabe, and then come back with Nurse. And you're not going to probably fit Draisaitl or McDavid with that, but you might get Ryan Nugent Hopkins. Something along those lines. One of the things that you can do as well when you're really searching for value is you can put one of your defensemen, if you had a true quarterback, like if you had a Clefbaum or something like that in there, you could have a quarterback in your captain's spot. It's going to get you a little bit lower ownership, and it's going to allow you to run 3 defensemen. So you could run 2, cheap defensemen, a decent quarterbacking type defenseman, and then turn around and fill it with a couple, 3 wingers or so that are going to be a little bit pricier. That's another way to build a showdown type of lineup. What you're looking to do is assemble floor. If you really wanted to, you could go adding up these types of shots on goal and block shots. These are typically consistent. You can go add up those points and build the highest points that you can, and then tie break with who's actually producing now versus who's producing over a little bit larger sample. Just a few ways to go about doing things. And the guys that I would be targeting, of course, it's not rocket science. I don't see any lower line guys running super hot. When I'm short, let's sort by the 5-game, then we'll get out of here. So when I do that, I'm going to slide back over here, knowing how the guys up top are the guys that I want. It's all the big names. I'm looking for the cheap guys. You know, Dalen, Tage Thompson, Sakara, Scandella, top line defenseman, top pair. These might be guys that I would be considering for some value type plays because they're running hot. Now, I would want them to have a higher floor because, again, if I'm building for some 39-man contest or a 13-man contest, floor plays. You know, you can do the ceiling thing, but you're adding a little bit of risk. And if you're only getting back 4x, 6x your money, you're not really getting enough back to take major contrarian risks. That goes hand in hand with how to build for the contest size. Now, if this had 1,000, 2,000 people in it, of course, go for the upside. Stack, correlate. I might break them off tonight, and I might run, kind of take 2 different guys on the same power play on different lines. We'll see what we do. It's hard to say how it's going to actually pay out when we start really putting together the salaries and stuff. But we've got a game plan. We've got an idea. If you're going to really go hang your hat out there, yeah, you would go ahead and stack up. Do like a lot of guys did last night. Put 5, Calgary guys and only 1 Arizona guy there. Put 5 Edmonton guys on there and only 1 Buffalo guy. That's fine. But I think that both teams are suppressed enough offensively that we're going to be hard pressed for points. You're going to have to get the goal. The goals that get scored, you're going to have to, if somebody scores 2, you're going to need that guy or you're not going to win. And that's hard to pin on a night-to-night basis. But I think that where you're going to play a little bit safer and give yourself a good, strong fighting chance is if you focus on your floor tonight. You focus on your shots on goal and your block shots. The guys that are producing night in and night out. You get those guys in there on a short list, and then you start picking from them who's running hot right now, who's actually producing assists, who's scoring a couple of goals, who's a high percentage of their team's production. Those are the tiebreakers tonight, not the lead. The lead is your shots on goal and your block shots tonight. Okay? Hopefully it makes a lot of sense to you. Hopefully you guys have some fun with that format. Let me know in the comment section. Let me know out on Twitter how much you like this type of teaching and this type of format. Because this is a lot of what we do inside DFSArmy.com, where, again, we put the content, tools, and coaching to work for you to make you a better player. Use coupon code CHOP, C-H-O-P, trigger potentially a 20% discount here in the today, tomorrow, someday coming soon. Get in here, become a VIP, and get access to the actual real-time question and answer sessions that we have back and forth. It is definitely worth the increase over just the tools only because you can ask me for feedback and you can have me show you more specific stuff when it comes to these types of tools and the types of ways to use them to break down slates and break down player pools. Take care, guys. I will hopefully talk to you guys tomorrow.